Today, I want to dive a bit deeper into the lack of pushback associated with this Evan Mathers trimming video. Now, we talked to this at the back end of the last video on this topic, but there's been a lot more insight based on the comments people have been leaving that, scares me quite a bit in terms of, the future of the hobby and also, what people deem to be okay, and also maybe the naivety associated with, what is okay and not okay to do to your card. So there's a few things I want to talk to, but let's just jump straight into it. As always, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's this video over here where we talked through, a bit of a trimming scandal with, former NFL footballer Evan Mathers. I'm not going to go through the detail once again, so check it out if you haven't seen it. But one of the things I talked to in that video was how there was a very severe lack of pushback from people within the hobby based on the commentary so far. People were basically laughing at the situation, saying it was okay, this and that. Now, to my surprise, when I put out this video, it looked like maybe 30% of the comments were in favor of doing those kinds of techniques, because the logic from these individuals was, well, it's no different to cleaning your car. It's no different to, restoring fine art. All you're doing is getting the card back to how it should have been, from the manufacturer in the first place. Now, there's a few clarifications I want to make on this that I've done to people down below. Firstly, it's not the same as doing art restoration, right? Art is typically a one-of-one designed by an artist. It's painted by an artist. It's restored purely for historical reasons and to also ensure that that piece of artwork that was created by an individual with, passion and all that sort of stuff stands the test of time, right? You're doing it to preserve, this beautiful thing that this person made, right? So they're not the same comparison in my opinion. The other comparison that people made is, well, how's it any different to giving your car a clean before you decide to sell it? Again, that's probably a little, silly to make that comment purely because trimming cards and altering cards and cleaning cards is more aligned to you as an individual rolling back, the miles on your car, the kilometers on your car before you decide to sell it to somebody, because you are deceiving this individual on, the true representation of this card, right? You're masking the car to be like it's better than what it actually is. So you trimming a card, you rolling edges, you doing manipulation to that card is misguiding and misleading the potential buyer on the true representation of that card. Now, some people have tried to say, okay, this blame needs to go on the third-party graders, which I completely agree with. The third-party graders need to do a heck of a lot better when it comes to spotting this kind of thing, and I think they can do a better job. There's lots of question as to why they wouldn't do that, according to Sports Card Radio today in a video, which I'll talk to in a second. But that can't be where your blame goes, right? You have to place some blame on the person that has bought this card, done bad things to this card, right? Manipulated the card, altered the card, with the intent to bypass the grading process, with the intent to try and take advantage of a future seller down the line by, getting a bigger premium on that card because the person thinks the card is a genuine, PSA 9 out of the factory, right? Where it's like, in reality, no, that it's not. You manipulated the card. You did things to that card to misrepresent what it actually is to try and deceive someone. That level of deception is not okay. And you need to think about that and not just place the blame on the graders either. This complete lack of pushback has been really concerning, because it doesn't appear that anybody is truly thinking about that poor end consumer that's buying something that is not a true representation of that card. Now, again, I'll also say this to people. If you're somebody that, is okay with that process, would you be okay if somebody sold you a car, then you found out later on that they rolled back the miles on that car? You can say, yeah, you're restoring a car and restored things have better value, but that's not really, how the card game, perceives things right now. Like when you're looking at vintage cars, right? I'll use them as an example. I'm not a car guy, I should say, but we'll use that as an example. Can you imagine buying like a vintage Mustang that is, still intact from factory? It's barely been touched, barely been driven, and you buy that and you want to pay a premium for that because that is a true representation of, something vintage. It's untouched, it's immaculate, right? Would you be happy to buy that and then find out, 12 months later that somebody did something to that car? They used fake parts. They used something that was off to a high standard, so much so that you couldn't spot it. But then you find out that car's not what it actually was. It's actually got fake parts, or it's much more used than what it actually is. That's not okay. And I don't think people would be okay with that. So to say that you're okay with this process being done to these cards, I think is a little bit naive. And I have to raise questions as to why you as an individual might be completely okay with trimming, right? Or color restoration. It tells me that you are maybe somebody that wants to do it. And that might not be the case, but I'm happy to have a chat with you down in the comments below. But I also wanted to quickly highlight, PSA's website very clearly explains what is considered altered. Now, if you come down here, this is only a new addition to the website, I want to say in the last few months, actually. But if you click on this, it clearly states exactly what altering is. It is, the altered may mean that the card shows evidence of one or more of the following: trimming, recoloring, restoration, and or cleaning. So again, I know some people are happy with Kurt's Card Care, but according to PSA, that's a big no-no. That goes against their policy. That goes against what is considered, an unaltered card. Again, if you're somebody that's doing these things and you're not disclosing it, that says a lot about you as an individual. So many people, as I quickly touched on yesterday, primarily care about the dollar figure associated with your cards. These are collectibles. You're meant to appreciate these. You thinking dollars only is going to mean that somebody's going to get a card in hand that they've spent a lot of money on because they're passionate, they love that player, it means a lot to them, it has some kind of sentimental value, and you've ruined that by deceiving them by doing some kind of hanky-panky and misappropriation on that card. It's not a good thing in my opinion, and I don't understand how people can say it is not fraud, because it is when you're doing it with the intent to deceive certain individuals. And I don't understand how people are okay with that, albeit card cleaning, trimming, color restoration, edge rolling, and say it's fine because that's how it should have come from the manufacturer. There's a reason why we pay premiums for cards that are graded highly, because they're rare, they're in higher grade. It's the luck of the draw getting a card from a manufacturer and no damage being on there. There's all these things that we place value on for why these cards, I keep saying cards, sorry, I'm dyslexic, should be, valuable down the line. And you doing those things, makes a mockery of that whole process. The other thing I want to quickly talk to, and apologies for the lip smack just there, is Sports Card Radio's video today. I think this was, one of the best videos they've put out in a long time, and I love most of their content. I think I love almost all of their content, actually. But this was incredibly informative. It goes for just under 7 minutes, and if you're not sure or you haven't seen it yet, which would be a bit shocking to me, because I think if you're subscribed to me, you're more than likely subscribed to them. But they raised some fantastic points on this situation and talk through secrets that these grading companies don't want you to know. And it's more around how, for some reason, it appears that people that are known trimmers and also alleged trimmers appear to be getting significantly higher gem rates and pristine rates at the likes of BGS, at the likes of PSA, than your counterpart as if you were just an average Joe submitting cards. It raises so many freaking questions around this whole, grading process. It raises so many questions about, the good old boy network, all these kinds of things. So if you haven't seen the Sports Card Radio, please check it out, because it is, so fantastic and so detailed. They're going to come to you all, later this week with more information on some of these, alleged trimmers. They mentioned how a few people were focusing only in on Evan Mathis, which I was one of them. I mentioned a few other people like Jason Coons and a few others that are flagged within the Blowout forums, but these guys are so much more in the detail. They've been looking into these trimmers for well over a decade. So if you're looking for, proper insight onto this, please keep an eye on some of their videos, because they're about to drop some truth bombs on the hobby that I think a whole lot of people are not across. Like, I try to be, as up to date with some of these things that are happening in the hobby as I can. But some of this stuff dates back a long time. And prior to me making my channel, yes, I would talk about these things with my friends. I'd be focusing in on these things. But because I didn't have a channel or anything like that, I wasn't doing it, in the detail all the time. Whereas these guys, like I said, have been doing it for over 10 years. So they've got such a wealth of knowledge. And there's so many people out there that don't want you to know what these guys are about to talk about. So stay tuned for that, because I think, like I said, they're going to drop some truth bombs and people out there are going to be pretty shocked. Once again, I will say that I don't understand how you can be an individual and think that, trimming, altering, color restoration, cleaning your card is okay. For many different reasons. There's additives you're putting on that card. Number one, you don't know what it's going to do to that card long term. And number two, you're more than likely you're not telling the person that you're selling it to that you've done those things. And you're very clearly, doing these things to, number one, deceive the third-party grader, but then also deceive that potential customer down the line when you want to make those big bucks. It is unacceptable, and I'm sure there's more to come on this situation down the line, because, you're almost reaching a point now where this stuff is becoming so mainstream with some of these, influencers and content creators, that I don't think these businesses can sit by and not put out statements or announcements saying, this person has been banned, we've done this, we're improving our process to fix this. I think it's going to reach a point where they're going to have to do that eventually. And in my opinion, it should be right now, but we know these businesses like to drag their feet. So I'm really keen, as always, to get your thoughts on this situation. Are you somebody that commented on my previous video and said you were, okay with that? I'd be really happy for you to clarify that a bit further in the comments of this one, just so I can get a bit more understanding as to why you're okay. Like, outside of wiping down with a cloth, I find it, really unfortunate, or using your fingers to rub something off on the card. Like, even that, it's still weird, but people do it, right? There's a very clear difference and distinction between doing that, putting chemicals on your card, using edge rollers, bending back corners, trimming corners, rolling cards, using wax on the card. You're doing a misrepresentation, and it's very deceitful, and it's not a good thing. And I hope we see far less of it I'm shocked that people are okay with it, but you know, that's life. So thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.